Good evening, everyone. It's Nick Wilshire, and back from wherever I was last time. I think you were all in good hands with Mabet, who hosted the last YouTube Live meeting last month. This is the AGM, and we have Professor Sadr, who's giving the presidential address this evening. So, very excited to have him with us this evening. Hopefully the connection remains stable. So we might have some trouble with the internet, but holding thumbs that his connection is okay. And this is my first time hosting an AGM, so I have to meander through this and bear with me while I try and figure out what to do in hosting this AGM. Yeah, we have a couple of apologies. We have one from Noni Vardy, who couldn't make it, and one from Reynard Burrs, who couldn't make it. He's busy with a mad deadline at the moment as well, and unfortunately could not make it this evening. And I see there are a number of you on the chat box. So Yvonne and Jean and Sarah and Andrew overseas. So hi to all of you. It's very nice to have you. And I think we've got just under 20 people connecting right now at the moment. So hopefully we have a well-attended AGM. So the first thing we've got on our agenda, and I hope you all read the agenda, which is on the info box for this talk, is just welcoming all of you. So as I say, hopefully we will get a number of members in attendance this evening. And then we have the minutes from the 2021 AGM, and we need to have some of you approve those minutes or propose that they're approved. So if you could use the chat box that some of you have been typing into on the right-hand side, you can simply approve or vote or make a point, which might be a correction to the minutes. So let's start with that. So has anyone got any comments on the minutes from last year? Any corrections or omissions or mistakes before we approve the minutes? And we have someone proposing to approve the minutes? Hopefully someone will put that in the chat box. I don't. Okay, we can come back to that. Hopefully, someone will propose that during this talk at any point. You can write into the chat box to give your approval for the minutes. Okay, so let's move on from the minutes. Then we received 67 responses, which was an improvement from last year. So we had, I think, 62 approvals last year for the annual reports and the financial statements. So that was an improvement of 5 this year from the 3 branches, and the KZN branch was the marked improvement came from that branch. So I think we have enough votes of approval for the reports and financial statements. Are there any comments? Thank you to Jeanette for her report as usual. Yeah, are there any further comments? I think there were some offline comments that were made that were replied to directly by email. I see Dawn. So Dawn is saying, are we meant to be seeing our screen? Okay, hold on one sec. Let's have a look. I think. Yes, I think the presentation's just gone blank. But I think that's from Karim's end. So I think we've lost Karim. Let's see. Have you guys? Can you see me on the screen? Let's see. Any comments over there? And Paul Gray approved the minutes. Thank you, Paul. I just want to check if can you guys see me? And hear me, hopefully. Let's see. I'm aware that Karim's connection is frozen. Okay. I'm assuming you guys can hear me because, yes, you are responding to my call for the minutes to be approved. So Yvonne has also proposed. So thank you, Lisa and Sarah. Great. Okay, wonderful. So it's just Karim's connection, unfortunately, which went a bit blank. And yeah, he's frozen in his study. he's, a, he's a still shot. So hopefully we can get him back when he reconnects. Um, so we've got the minutes approved. And are there any further comments on the financial reports or the secretary's report? Thank you, Yvonne. Okay. Any further comments? I think we can take it that everyone is happy with the two reports then. Great. I think, yeah, as I say, we did have 67 approvals and a couple of comments on formatting of financials and that kind of thing, which we've sent on to our financial company that does our reports for us. Okay, good. So the next thing we've got is the presidential address. So let's see if we can get Karim back. All right, 1 second. Okay, so Karim, I see you are live again. Can you share your screen again the way you did before? And then hopefully that'll refresh on the screen.
You hear me here?
Yep, I can hear you.
Sorry, Nick, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, and you're coming through.
I was receiving very poorly. I don't know if you asked me to start.
So yeah, so your screen, if you could reshare your screen. Okay, I think Karim is just refreshing his page, and hopefully when he comes back, we can jump straight into his presidential address. Yeah, his connection is pretty bad. I think it's from his office. Apologies for this, guys. I'll thank Yvonne in the meantime. Great. Let's see. Karim is returning. Okay, he's coming back.
Hi, Nick, can you see my slideshow or do I need to share the screen again?
Yeah, so we can see your visual, but your slideshow you just need to reshare.
Reshare. Okay. So let me go back out and come back in again, I guess. All
Oh, you
right.
can just hit share, so you don't have to
Okay.
rejoin the room or anything like that. Yeah.
Right. Shall I rejoin the room?
No. Just reshare. Yeah, you don't have to
Okay.
go out, come back in. Yeah.
All right. So let's see if I can remember how to do this. I've got the whole screen or the window. That might be even better, eh? No.
Mm-hmm.
Let me do the whole screen. Let's do the same thing we did last time.
Sure.
And okay, you've got both sides there.
Yeah. And
So I'll enlarge this and then I'll go on the slideshow. And can you see that?
great. That's perfect. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So I hope
Over to you.
I'll hide
Yeah.
this. Good. I'll hide this, and I hope that the sound is coming through all right.
Yeah,
Because Nick, I'm hearing you very with great difficulty, but I'll assume it's good enough. If I get cut off, please call me or send me an SMS so I don't carry on giving the whole presentation to nobody.
sure,
Um,
we'll do. Okay.
Thanks. Let me first of all start by saying good evening to all the members of the society who've joined us and the guests who might catch up later. And let me say what a pleasure it is and what an honor it is for me to give this presentation at the end of my 2 year stint as the president of the society. Um, I must first of all say a heartfelt thank you to all the hardworking members of the Society's Council, and especially Nick, who does all the heavy lifting with the high tech. All of our meetings of diffusion and diffusion of innovation theory and South African archaeology. What I've done is I've divided up the talk into basically three portions. The whole thing will take about half an hour. And I want to talk about diffusion of innovation theory first, explain it, give you a couple of case studies, examples, and then try and apply it as an exercise to a historical and archaeological case from Africa and South Africa. And then to finish with an epilogue about how the diffusion of innovation theory might help us see what is the way forward for archaeology in South Africa. So let me jump in, and hopefully the slide has changed and you're able to see the first slide that says, what is DOI? DOI is short for diffusion of innovations. Some of you will be familiar with this already, but for those of you who aren't, let me give you a bit of an explanation. So this is a theory that seeks to explain how, why, and at what rate new ideas and technologies spread through social systems. It basically seeks to explain social change, in other words. Now, the book, or Everett Rogers is the founder of this theory. His book was first published in 1962. It's now in its fifth or sixth edition. And I can highly recommend the book. It's full of very, very interesting things. Uh, but what DOI does is it can provide a fresh perspective on the interpretation of archaeological data, I think. And I'd like to present you that tonight.
Hi,
And
Karim.
in addition,
Sorry. Sorry to interrupt. Your presentation just popped off because
oh,
you went on freeze for a second, and I think when you came back, it
it
lost your
disappeared.
presentation. Yeah,
Okay, well,
it
let me see if I can
just refresh it.
rejig it, and let's see. So
Sorry
I'm
about that.
back here. No, no problem. This is these things happen. So let's start this again, and I'll share the screen again, and I'll enlarge it, and then go back to slideshow. I'm hoping you can see it. Is that good?
Yeah, yeah, it's coming through.
Is that through?
Correct. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
off we
So
go.
I'll
Yep, as you
let me
were.
just pop back. I'm assuming this slide was okay,
Yeah.
and so I've moved on from here to the next slide to just explain further that diffusion of innovations, it can provide a fresh perspective on the interpretation of archaeological data, and perhaps even shed some light on the future of archaeology in South Africa, as I'll speak in the epilogue to this subject. So, first of all, can you see my new slide, or I hope I didn't disappear again? Okay, that's great. So let me just start out by saying something about what are innovations after all. And innovations are new methods, ideas, or products. That's all. It's a pretty simple thing. And every man-made object that you see around you, wherever you're seated, is an innovation that's successfully diffused and gained many adopters. Anything you look at the moment, I'm on the internet, so the internet is probably the fastest diffusion of an innovation ever, uh, from invention to innovation to diffusion to dispersal to the whole world. It's gone extremely rapidly. Personal computers is another example of a very, very successful innovation that diffused extremely quickly. But in fact, every man-made object you see around you is an innovation that diffused successfully. At some point, it didn't exist, and then it got spread, and now we all have it, or you have it, and I have it. Something as simple as the glass in the window pane, for example. There was a time where there was no glass. Somebody invented glass, then somebody invented how to turn that into a window pane, and then that diffused, and now pretty much every building in every village in the world has window pane glass panes in its windows. These are very successful innovations. They might be very uh, uh, everyday objects, but at some point we have to, if you look at them as innovations that diffused, one realizes that actually everything, all these things didn't exist at some point, and they diffused successfully. How did that diffusion take place? Other examples, tables, lamps, goodness, everything that's man-made around you is an innovation that's successfully diffused. Now, on to the next slide, and Nick, you'll tell me if I've succeeded in showing the next slide. Most innovations, however, fail to diffuse beyond a small circle of adopters. Most innovation, that's about well over 90%. I would guess 99%. Have I gone off the screen again? No, I assume everything's okay. All right, I'll carry on, and you'll let me know if I've disappeared. So on to the next slide. Um, most diffusions then don't succeed most innovations don't succeed to diffuse, but all successful innovations diffuse in a similar pattern. Some go more slowly, some go faster, but they all follow exactly the same pattern. And this is one of the major findings of Everett Rogers. So when plotted as a cumulative graph, all successful diffusions show an S curve, what's called an S curve. So if you look at that graph, which shows time on the horizontal axis and the percentage of adoptions on the vertical axis, uh, you can see three S curves. All innovations start off at zero, basically. They get invented, the innovator appears, and the innovator slowly manages to convince maybe some members of his or her family, and then a few early adopters take on that innovation. Early adopters are a particular category that I'll talk about in the next slide. And then, if the innovation is successful, if it diffuses, it reaches a takeoff point. And at this takeoff point, a critical mass of adopters adopt this diffusion, and the thing takes off. Over a relatively short period of time, a lot of adopters now jump on the bandwagon, and the innovation diffuses rapidly until such time as most of the adopting community has already adopted, and the curve basically starts to flatten out as fewer and fewer new adopters come on board. And in the end, there are the late adopters who finish the process. So the main point of this is that there have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of diffusion of innovation studies on different innovations, different parts of the world, and they all show exactly the same pattern. So there's no reason to think that in the past, in the archaeological past, it was any different. This is how all innovations diffuse. So I'm moving on to the next slide
Okay, Karim,
and
can you refresh there?
refresh. Have I disappeared again? Okay, let
Yeah,
me escape again and I'll try and come back on board again.
yeah.
Let's see, I'll share the screen and I shall share from here and I'll enlarge and I will, how's that?
It's hopefully coming through. Let's see.
I can't hear you terribly well, Nick, but I presume it's okay.
Yeah, I think you can proceed.
Okay, thank you. So the second thing that's important to talk about is that the sequence in which a successful innovation is adopted is also always the same. So earlier adopters tend to have a particular social profile. They're the wealthier, the more cosmopolitan, the more open-minded members of the community. And the adopters, the innovators are right at the beginning, innovators are generally speaking outsiders, both in the social sense and often in the real sense that they come from outside of the community. Uh, Innovators and their immediate circle make up a very small percentage, maybe 2.5% in this graph of the adopters. The early adopters, who are the wealthier, more cosmopolitan, more open-minded members of the community, and they're more prone to taking risks, they jump on the bandwagon and in the early part and take on the innovation. Then there is a chasm. The chasm is the point at which the innovation can still fail. Because if the rest of the community now doesn't follow the early adopters, that innovation will simply flatline at that stage or drop and will not become a successful innovation. But if it is successful, if it goes over the chasm, if it hits that takeoff point, the early majority will jump on the bandwagon, then the late majority, and right at the end, there are the laggards who eventually adopt the innovation. The point is that the later adopters tend to be more conservative than the earlier adopters, and the laggards at the end are really the very conservative, very parochial ones who wait everybody else has adopted the innovation before they decide, okay, they might as well do it as well. And of course, there are some people in the community who never do adopt that innovation. So the important point is that this sequence, again, in hundreds of DOI studies on different subjects, different objects, different innovations, different parts of the world, have always shown that this is the same sequence. You get the early adopters, same kind of social profile, the early majority, similar profile, late majority, laggards, similar social profile, and it's always the same. It happens this way every time. So there's no reason to think that this was any different in the archaeological past. You had innovators, you had the risk takers, the cosmopolitan, open minded members who were the early adopters, and progressively the innovation would diffuse to the most conservative members of that society. So let me move on to the next slide and see if you've managed to. Can you see that as well? I'll, I'll assume you can, unless I hear otherwise. So this is very important as well, and I'll come back to these 5 points 2 more times, 3 more times in the talk. So the 5 factors that determine the success and rate of the diffusion of an innovation are first the relative advantage of that innovation, the degree to which an innovation is perceived as better than the idea it supersedes. Second, compatibility, which is the degree to which an innovation is perceived as being consistent with existing values and needs of the adopters. Third is a complexity, which is the degree to which an innovation is perceived as difficult to understand and use. And you can imagine the more difficult to understand and use, the slower that innovation will spread. Fourth trialability, which is the degree to which an innovation may be experimented with on a limited basis, and 5, observability, the degree to which the results of an innovation are visible to others. So any innovation, when you're studying how it diffuses, you can essentially measure it on these 5 variables and try to figure out why it diffused quickly or slowly, why it failed. These 5 factors will tell you. These are the 5 key factors to keep in mind. And uh, sorry, I heard. Is the screen okay? I assume it's okay. I'll carry on. So Ryan and Gross study, they first published in 1943, and they studied hybrid corn, which is what corn is what Americans call maize or our maize. And hybrid corn increased harvest by 20% and was more drought resistant, but farmers had to buy fresh seed every year. Hybrid corn was invented at the University of Iowa in 1920s, and Ryan and Gross were interested to understand why did some farmers resist, some farmers adopted very quickly. Why did they do that? And Ryan and Gross studied the diffusion of this innovation in 2 rural Iowa communities, and first published in 1943. And what they found, or let me just say that what they studied was a sample of 259 farmers. And what they did was record the date of adoption for each farmer, the communication channels that helped to convince the farmers to adopt, how many acres each farmer planted with hybrid corn, and they also recorded the farmer's level of education, the farm size, their income, frequency of travels to the city, readership of farm magazines, and various other. I wonder if, hello? Hi, Nick, you lost me. Okay, okay. And then can you tell me which on which slide you lost me? I can go back there. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay, okay, okay. I can't see you yet, but I can see myself anyway. Oh, there you are. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this connection's just not working.
Shame,
Um,
shame.
yeah. Okay. I think let's call it. I think it's better. I think we've missed most of your talk, unfortunately. It's been in and out and in and out.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So,
No problem. What I
and
can do is I can either record it now or tomorrow morning, and I'll send it to you, and you can put it up whenever.
yeah, I think let's do that. Yeah, so tomorrow morning would be perfect, and then I'll post it later tomorrow. When I receive it from you, I'll upload it immediately and then share the link with everyone.
Okay, that sounds all right. Sorry
Okay.
about this. It's a pity, but there it is. Technology, some innovations don't work very well, but
Yeah, no
we'll
problem
fix
at
it.
all. Yeah,
Okay,
no, I think
great.
the internet is just going to break again on the one end. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
not worth it. Okay, I'll record it tomorrow morning and I'll send it out.
okay. Thanks, Karim.
Great,
All
great.
right,
Thanks,
have a great
Nick.
evening.
Cheers. Bye then.
Okay,
Bye, bye.
bye bye. Okay, thanks everyone. So we let's call it this evening, and let's. I will get the pre-recorded talk from Karim, and I'll share a high-quality version with all of you tomorrow as soon as I receive it, and I'll send out the link via the website. So just check out the homepage for the event details of the talk, and I'll see if I can edit this one as well to refer to Kareem's one. So if you go to our YouTube page, you will see the talk. It'll be there on the channel page as well. So sorry about this evening. Yeah, it sometimes happens with the internet connection not being reliable, and yeah, not much we can do to improve that. So we'll definitely get you the talk tomorrow. So everyone, thank you for joining. Thanks for the votes, and we'll note that down, and we will get to talk to you tomorrow. Have a lovely evening. Sorry about the poor connection, and hopefully we'll get the good talk, quality talk tomorrow. Um, thanks, Jean, and thanks, Lisa, and to everyone who commented on the chat box. Have a lovely evening. Bye bye, everyone.